Welcome everybody to Forza Horizon 4, and today we're taking a look at the 1984 Rover SD1 Vitesse. Now this is an executive car that was produced between 1976 and 1986, with more than 300,000 being made, and this is one of the more luxurious versions of the SD1, as it included electric windows, electric mirrors, a trip computer, headlight washers, adjustable steering column, and a 4-speaker stereo, which was a rarity at that time, though obviously now we have stereo systems that are like a dozen speakers at least. So yeah, this was a really rather innovative car for the time, and just in terms of how it's been designed is very clever indeed, because it manages to mix three different kinds of cars all into one. As you can see, it's got the kind of a side profile of a sports coupe, as it's got a long nose and short tail, but it's also got a four-door layout like any saloon, meaning it's got plenty of room in the front and the rear. As you can see, loads of leg room there, but it's also a hatchback, which means it's got plenty of space in the boot as well. So yeah, wonderfully mixes three different kind of cars into one, and yeah, that's something that even modern day cars can't do these days. Take the BMW X6 for example, which is trying to be a coupe and a SUV at the same time, and it's completely hopeless, whereas this is able to be all three at once. And yeah, as a result, it's not only a practical, usable car, but it's also extremely stylish, and I think it looks amazingly cool, to be honest. And then take it to the interior, where as you see, all the instruments are in one little square box, meaning that only a few screws, and you can take it out and put it on the other side, and put the steering wheel where that vent is, and then put the vent on the other side where the steering wheel would be in this instance on the right hand side. So meaning that manufacturing is lesser in terms of cost, making the car cheaper to make in general, and therefore cheaper to make. And yeah, just makes production all the better, quite frankly. And yeah, the engine in this is also extremely innovative. It was originally made by Buick from 1960 to 1963, then made its British debut in 1967. Notable for its lightweightedness, weighing in at just 317 pounds, thanks to aluminium cylinder heads and an aluminium cylinder block. And power would range from 158 horsepower to 340 horsepower, with the size of the engine ranging from 3.5 litres to 5 litres in its overall size. This has a 3.5 litre V8, so it's the smallest of the kind of sizes you could have, but power isn't all the way down, as it has 191 horsepower and 220 pounds-feet of torque, which is fairly reasonable, especially when you compare it to American V8s from the time. A Chevrolet Monte Carlo, for instance, only has 180 horsepower, a little bit more in the way of torque, but it weighs a whole lot more as well, as this weighs 3,197 pounds, whereas that Monte Carlo, for instance, is in excess of 3,500 pounds. And yeah, this looks better, is way more practical, and yeah, obviously has more power, so quicker in terms of acceleration as well. So yeah, I absolutely adore this car. I know it's from the British Leyland years for Rover, which were hopeless for the most part. Pretty much every car they made was useless and badly made, but this was at least designed really well and had plenty of innovative parts put into it. Just a shame that, like every other car from the time, it was poorly made, which yeah, kind of really hindered the overall sales that it could have had. But yeah, I'm glad it's in the game. We've never had a Rover before in a game before on the Forza series, and yeah, I'm glad it is at least this one that is the first of hopefully many Rovers to come in future Forza games, if not this one. So yeah, nonetheless, let's get out onto the open road and see what this car can do. Now, even though it is an executive car, meaning that it's hardly got sportiness in mind, especially considering it's got a live rear axle and drum brakes at the rear, it's still a really reasonable handling car. Again, mentioning the Monte Carlo, it's certainly far better in handling and braking than that vehicle, while, like I said, also quicker in terms of acceleration. Speaking of acceleration, this can do 0 to 60 in 7.8 seconds, 0 to 121.2 seconds, and going to a top speed of 136 miles an hour. Now the Monte Carlo is slightly quicker at the top end with an extra mile an hour on this, but it's a full 1.2 seconds slower to 60 and more than 7 seconds slower to 100. So yeah, this has even America's attempt at a sports coupe, hopelessly outnumbered. And yeah, it's easily one of the best sporty kind of saloons as well, to be honest. comes around the same time as the M5, but obviously that has more power and a lot less in the way of weight. But still, considering this isn't supposed to be a sports car, it's an executive saloon with luxury in mind and comfort and refinement. The fact that it's still able to be as quick as it is while handling reasonably well as well is, yeah, really enjoyable, to be honest. And I'm just so glad it's in the game. I know I'm not hardly selling it at the moment because we're hardly going all that quick, but that's just because automatic gearboxes on this game are a little bit useless. But yeah, do love it, and hopefully it means that we get more cars from this kind of period, really, because we don't have many British Leyland vehicles. I know we have the Triumph TR6, which came about in 1970, which is just around the same kind of time that British Leyland was coming into its coming into force. But yeah, that's the only other one that is really, you know, you could really say is a British Leyland vehicle. So hopefully we can have some more. Now, granted, this is pretty much the only good one that was ever made, but I'm on the side of having cars that have flaws but are still interesting into a game. Not every car has to be a perfect piece of engineering. Some cars with flaws are more interesting than cars that are perfect. So yeah, I would like to see more, you know, Triumphs, maybe more Rovers, definitely. I'd like a Rover P5 or a P6, which also shared the engine from this car. Speaking of which, plenty of cars had this engine in the UK. You had TVRs. We've got a couple of Land Rovers on this game that share this engine. The Land Rover Range Rover from the early 70s has the same size engine as this, though less power. And the Land Rover Defender 90 has the slightly more bigger engine, the 4-litre version of this as well. So yeah, a lot of cars use this engine, and it's easy to see why. Endlessly tunable, really reliable, lightweight, and yeah, get a lot of power out of it, even for an executive car like this. So yeah, get out there and get it if you haven't already. It's part of the festival playlist. You only have to do 1 championship, so 3 races to get it, and it is more than worth it because it's a superb car. And even if you aren't entirely sold on this car, you can still do that series to get to 50% to get the Lexus LFA, which is also part of the current season for the festival playlist. So yeah, 2 cars for 1 really, because I am looking forward to getting that Lexus LFA as well, which will also get a review in the future. But anyway, yeah, get this car, it's superb, and yeah, it's far more innovative than people give it any credit for. It's just a great shame that it wasn't really made very well. So yeah, reliability plagued its reputation. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.